Pacer Nation, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, setting the pace, the Indiana Pacers. This is maybe a controversial statement, but I think it is the biggest game of the season. The Pacers take down a longtime foe in the Miami Heat, beating them 117 to 115. It was a lot closer than it needed to be, but the Pacers still escape with a victory. And here to talk with me about this game, he's going to be a lot much more milder than Michael J. Facci would be. It is David Cole. He's a little more reserved, I guess you could say, than Facci is. So, David, thanks so much for filling in for Facci. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. That was a fun game.
Oh
Really
yeah.
back and forth. Didn't know what was going to happen. The Pacers got up by 20 points at one point. I'm thinking to myself, how is this happening? And I said, how are we going to lose this? How are we going to get this lead back to Miami? Because it's the inevitable with this Pacers team. That's what they do. And
hmm
sure enough, Miami did kind of put their foot on the gas in the fourth quarter, and they kept finding ways to come back into this game. But thankfully, the Pacers were able to hold the Miami Heat off.
Yeah, I felt a little bit like Facci tonight watching this game. I kept saying like, don't say anything about the Miami Heat shooting threes. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. And then right before the first half, I sent a text in our group message like, they're like one of whatever for three. That has to change, right? We need to make sure we have a lead because it's probably going to change. And it changed. It changed in the second half. I spoke it into existence, and then they ended up shooting like 58% from three in the second half, and made it close. But it was a very like as our friend Carson said in the group chat, said that it was a very mature team win. It was um the kind of win that we like you were saying, like you expected them to once they got close, especially how are we going to lose this? That's what we would have done in the past, especially against a team as solid as the Heat and how they were playing in the second half. They were playing incredibly tough, hitting shots all of a sudden, and staying. They played a lot better defense second half, and they earned that like comeback. It wasn't like it was just like a fluke thing. They earned
Mhm.
it as a team. The Heat did, um, and we've seen them crumble in moments like that in the past, and they were able to find a way to make it across the finish line with a 2 point lead. So that's all that
I,
matters.
yeah, I mean, a lot of times with this Pacers team over the last, I would say the last month or so, but you kind of see them get out to a slow start and then TJ McConnell on the bench come in
Mhm.
and they kind of spearhead the comeback where the Pacers going on a little bit of a run. And it was really interesting because before the game, Jeremiah Johnson asked Eric Spoelstra about the Pacers bench.
Yeah.
And he said it's basically like he's like they're on steroids when they come in the game. They've been so good this year. And TJ McConnell, like when Haliburton was out last game when they played each other back at the first game in December, he said it was a TJ McConnell show.
Mhm.
And you could feel that because TJ McConnell was so good. But I thought what was interesting about this win tonight was the two guys that really stepped up and kind of played above what they usually play was TJ McConnell and Miles Turner. And these are your two longest tenured Pacers. They know what
Yeah.
it's like to be in this building with, tough matchups on the line. And a lot of these other players that are young and new, they really haven't been in this environment, this type of moment. Pascal Siakam's probably the exception, but never in Indiana, mostly with Toronto, only with Toronto, right? So to me, it was
Yeah.
just relying heavily on the guys that are your longest tenured Pacers because they know the magnitude of what it means to win these type of games in Indiana for this fan base. And I just think as great as McConnell was, I thought Miles Turner was just as good in his performance as well.
That was one of my first notes on the game while I was watching is like some games he just comes out and he's going to get rebounds and he just makes up his mind and I don't know what the difference is and I'm sure some of it is matchup based, but Bam is a good center, like usually has a pretty decent game against Miles. Um, And Miles, you could just it was just different. He was gunning for rebounds. There's a couple of rebounds that he pulled out of his own teammates' hands. It was just like, no,
Yeah.
this is mine. And that's what you want from your fringe all-star. He was in consideration as like a injury fill-in potentially, but as a starting center that you want to be one of your like centerpieces of your offense for now, at least in terms of our team makeup right now. He's the kind of guy that like if he can have games like this with any kind of regularity, you're looking at a potential opportunity to win a series. Now that's always been the kind of the question mark with a lot of our players. Not this is not any kind of a shot at Miles. I love Miles, but it's a matter of can we get 10 to 15 from 7 or 8 guys, which tonight we got from 7. So it
Mhm.
happens for us, and that's part of the strength of our bench. But if Miles can play at this level, I mean, he was tied leading scorer for the team.
Yeah.
for this game. 13 rebounds, which I thought I heard someone on TV say that it was a career high.
Career high? I don't think
Not
it's career high.
season high.
Season high. Yes,
Yes,
yes. Maybe that's it.
not at all career high. But to me, 13 for a career high is like, sorry again, misspeak. Season high is for Miles is like that surprised me. But if that's what it is, then that's what it is. But like to come out as you could say, as you said earlier, one of the most important games, if not the most important game of the season, to start off the first quarter aggressive. He had 4 rebounds in like the first couple of minutes. And that kind of Miles Turner activity usually ends up leading to scoring on the opposite side of the court, if not for him, for the team in general. Because for whatever reason, there's only a couple of people that I feel like do. There's a couple of people on our team that do a better job of getting the board and then turning and finding Tyrese right away. And he's definitely one of those people that does a good job of that. And so if he's getting lots of boards, then we're getting lots of potential fast break opportunities. So that's always good for us.
All right, so 13 rebounds ties a season high. He also
Okay.
had 13 rebounds against the Washington Wizards. So,
Of course
you
he
know,
did. He loves playing the Wizards.
yeah, he does. He does have good games against them. But he had some rough ones early on this year though, which was really
Yeah,
interesting
it
against
was
Daniel
weird.
Gafford. But he's had some, like, I think he had a 40-point game against the Wizards a few years ago. So,
Hmm.
he talked about how he could do that on a night to night basis. And, that was a tough thing to say, and then follow it up with that Miami game. But
Hmm.
this was a huge game because, and like you said, it's a mentality thing where he said, "I've got to go out there and get these rebounds."
You
And
could
we're
tell.
we're talking about a guy that's dealing with a finger injury that
Yeah,
probably does make it even more difficult to rebound baskets, or miss
yeah.
shots. And the fact that he still shot the ball pretty efficient, 6 of 12 from the field,
Hmm.
2 of 6 from three, but 13 rebounds. That was over 33% of the amount of rebounds the team had altogether. They had
Yeah,
37 as a team. So
yeah,
for him to have closer probably to 40% of the team's rebounds is pretty impressive
yeah,
considering the lack of rebounds that they really had as a team overall. So, it was
yeah,
just a really good game from him. And then TJ McConnell, like, we cannot say enough great things about TJ McConnell. Like, it's just insane. Like, the run that he went on, having 14 points in that first half, really just spearheaded that second unit, playing with so much speed. And I think Miles is a big part of that too, because Miles played with TJ more in this second with that second unit because
yeah.
every time Bam went back on the court, Miles followed right after. It was a matchup thing. Rick Carlisle was
Hmm.
never going to allow Bam Adebayo on the floor without Miles Turner out there defending, and I think that was great coaching strategy by Rick Carlisle. And people have been knocking Rick. I know a lot of people were mad at Rick for not challenging one of these calls. We'll talk about later here in the fourth quarter, but
Sure.
just the way, and I think Caitlin Cooper did a really good job kind of tweeting about it and explaining like what they were doing because the Heat were in this 2-3 zone and they were kind of using Miles in different ways and it was allowing TJ McConnell just to cook. And so
Yeah.
you can have TJ McConnell just cook like 6 of 7 was what he shot in the first half. And then he finishes 11 of 14. So it's like a really solid game plus 5 assists. Like you just can't say enough great things. That's back-to-back podium games for TJ McConnell after the game. I mean,
Love
he's
it.
been probably the fourth best player on this team
It's
consistently.
insane.
If you're looking at like who their top dogs are, it's like
Yeah.
Miles, Tyrese, Pascal, and then TJ.
And his defense, it hasn't been, no one's gonna be like, oh my gosh, his defense is the best on the team or anything like that. But it's like, especially on a team where your defense has been an issue for the majority of the season, to have a guy who's coming in, bringing a spark and scoring and keeping the offense flowing when you're one of the best offensive players in the league and Tyrese Haliburton is off the court, or even when he's on the court still, to give an off-ball threat like that, to be able to give Tyrese the opportunity to step off ball for a little while it's just gigantic. And to have that and not have your defense slip a ton because TJ, as a guy who's probably my height,
Yeah.
like he's definitely shorter than you. And so it's like, come on, like this guy should not be good at defense, should not be able to score 22 points against the Miami Heat. You can debate this is his best game of his season. I will not slip up and say career this time, but season. He did score 26 at some point, uh, but like this is the second highest scoring I think this season, and because of just the level of importance of this game, you could argue it's the best game of this season. I mean, 11 of 14 is insane. And you can say, well, yeah, a lot of those were like close mid-range shots, but like those are not easy. He's like leaning and fading, and they're against people that are like inches taller than him, if not like Bam is probably at least 9 inches taller than him, if not even more than that. Those are not easy shots, and yeah, that's his bread and butter. But like he's worked to get to the point where he can just make those and make them look easy, but they're not easy shots. And
Mhm.
to make 11 of 14, that's just that number is just staggering to me.
Yeah,
From a
he
guy
had
from a guy
26 in that game against San Antonio that they lost.
Yes, that's right. But like that number, like, from a guy who was out of the rotation at the beginning of the season, you
Yeah.
know, it's like, come on, like he's worked his butt off to get here, and he's an asset at this point.
Yeah, so I think it was NBA University said that TJ McConnell is the best backup point guard in the league, and
Wow.
Miles Turner retweeted that and said, "No cap here," and it
Yeah.
was great. It was a great question by Derek Kramer of iPacers blog. He asked Miles about TJ McConnell, and McConnell has joked around with Miles saying, "You haven't been able to block my shot. You haven't blocked me yet," and he's blocked over like I forget how many hundreds of people it is, but Miles has had a really great you know career in terms of blocking different people, and I know Derek does a great job kind of logging and tracking all of that, but
Yeah, yeah,
it was a great way to kind of set up a question where he said, "What makes TJ McConnell so hard to guard?" Because that is a great question because it's
yeah,
interesting to see how he's just able to carve up and slice up defenses left and right. And Miles jokingly in the middle of his comment goes, "I think when he sees a white guy guarding him, it just he wants to prove him wrong or whatever." He said, "I got to find the quote exactly. I feel bad not saying the quote correctly because I am not doing it justice, but." He basically said that he wants to be the white guy out of anybody on
yeah.
the
It's
court.
like no other white guy can be better than me. I have
Yes.
to be the one.
Yeah, so you had some competition tonight. Duncan Robinson's out there. He didn't play very well. Tyler Hero had a pretty good game, but I think TJ
Yeah,
McConnell probably had more of an impact for the Pacers. Kevin Love was out there. So you know what? It's like this was TJ McConnell's time to shine. He was
yeah.
he was the white guy out there tonight. And I thought it was funny that Miles said that. And then TJ's response was just so funny. He just sat there, kind of put his head down, started shaking his head. And he was like, "Oh, Miles," like he's like, "I'm not even going to respond to this. I'm just going to say
That's
that's
great.
a great Miles quote." So you could just
Yeah,
tell, like, it made him really uncomfortable. TJ hates talking about himself. That's one thing. If you ever listen to TJ in an interview and he's asked about how great he is, he just can't
yeah,
do it, which speaks of the leadership of TJ McConnell. So
sure.
honestly, like these two guys right here, big games from them. Somebody else that I thought really played a good game tonight, Obi Toppen. I thought Obi Toppen was huge in this game. I asked Rick Carlisle after the game about Obi Toppen and how he's just kind of grown this season because there was a key stretch there where the Pacers were, kind of dwindling a little bit in the third quarter, and Obi Toppin hit back-to-back threes,
Hmm.
and then he also found TJ McConnell cutting back door where he found him for a beautiful pass, and it was a big momentum shift in the entire game. And I asked Rick not just about that, but I just asked him how he's seen Obi grow, and he really just alluded to a 6'10" player that when he came here, they told him you got to work on your rebounding and defense, and he's really grown in that way. But
Yeah.
his versatility, his feel, his shooting, he said he's a player that he loves. So there's a reason why I think we're seeing Obi Toppin continue to have success over the last couple of weeks or whatever. But the synergy between him and McConnell is just really fun to watch, especially now with Matherin out of the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, very efficient night, 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, and you mentioned working on the rebounds. He only had 3 rebounds, but at the same time, he only played 16 minutes.
Yeah.
So, Miles played 21 minutes more than him. He played more minutes, more than double, right? And so I'm not saying like, oh, if Miles had played, if you flip their minutes, then Obi gets 13 rebounds. Probably not, no. But it just
Mhm.
shows you like, yeah, 3 looks small, but like look at that compared to the minutes, and if he plays a full game, it's probably more like 6 or 7 or 8, and that looks a lot better. Um, off the bench to be able to like, that's the thing about this team right now. Like you mentioned about Obi, but you might as well mention about Tyrese, not Tyrese and TJ and Ben and all these other guys too. They're like they take the role of this game, and then if it's different the next game, it's great. But they take that too, and they just kind of like do what's asked of them, and they don't always perform up to their ability every single time. It's part of why we see these weird blip games where they lose to the Charlottes and San Antonio and Portland and whoever else,
Brooklyn.
and then yeah, Brooklyn and Chicago, and I mean, let's keep going. But that's part of what's frustrating is you see games like this, and you see games like when we beat Boston in the season tournament, and you see when we beat Milwaukee 4 times, and you're like, so that we don't do it. Yes, Tyrese is the headliner of a lot of those games, but he didn't single-handedly win those games. It took a team effort from a lot of these guys that are willing to just like listen to the coaching staff and work on the things they need to work on and do what they were asked of them, and perform. And like it's such an efficient night. I mean, in a 2-point game to have your bench have Obi and TJ off the bench, 5 of 7 and 11 of 14. Like that is that is probably the game. I mean, there's Cody Martin had a really good game off the bench for the Heat. He was frustrating to watch because it was like he was always open under the basket, like
Yeah.
just constantly getting backdoor cuts open under the basket. And Hero had a good second half, but didn't start super well. Um, but like those are guys that like have been starters at different points in time. Whereas like Obi Toppin, no one's ever he's started games, but no one's like, oh yeah, he's a starter. Whereas Tyler Hero, when he was first drafted, was compared to superstars in this league, and that's not where he's at right now. And maybe he can get there eventually. I'm not gonna say he's not can never ever get there, but comparing Cody, if you're like talking about Cody Martin, Tyler Hero in the same breath as TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin, it's like I feel like we got the better of that, and not in terms of the talent, in terms of the performance tonight.
Mhm. Well, I will say this: like the Miami Heat, they're 8 games above 500. They're still, a
Oh
very
yeah,
capable team, right? It's not like you're looking at a team. I know they've lost a few players here and there, but this team made it to the NBA Finals last year.
yeah.
And one thing I do think played a big factor in tonight's game was Terry Rozier. He woke up and had a neck injury, was questionable to play, ends up playing. But Terry Rozier, only 4 points on 2 of 7 shooting, 22 minutes played.
Hmm.
He clearly wasn't himself. And I do think that
Yeah.
that did have a huge impact negatively on Miami because he's averaged around 20 some points a game against the Pacers when he was Charlotte. So when he's
Hmm.
fully healthy, like they're totally a different team. And I want to make sure that we don't dismiss that because
Of course.
they had Kyle Lowry for a long, long time, and we know like Kyle Lowry can be a very obnoxious player to play against, very good at drawing fouls and kind of taking charges and just whatever. But like he's a champion for a reason. Like Kyle
Hmm.
Lowry is a very talented basketball player, and the Philadelphia 76ers have been playing better basketball as of late. Obviously, Joel Embiid came back, but like Kyle Lowry's addition has been huge for that team too, just to give them an extra piece. So it is a different team, but it's one of those teams you can never count out. Jimmy Butler on the other side
Yeah.
of you, you don't want to play. You don't want to play a team that has Jimmy Butler. Like I don't think anybody wants to see Miami in the playoffs, but
Yeah.
they were in this spot last year. They lost their first in season tournament game. They won their second one and barely won that one. End up being the 8 seed, stun Milwaukee, and then they play. I think it was New York and then Boston. So it's like you just can never count this Heat team out for the Pacers to just be able to beat this team that has all this experience. It does kind of tell you like this is a team that is growing. And
Yeah.
I want to talk about Tyrese Haliburton a little bit because if you were to look at his stats, you'd say, 12 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 of 10 shooting. Not a good night. Well, I would say that that's wrong. He was a +3 in this game. And I thought that he did a good job fighting defensively. There's a couple different times he got switched on to Jimmy Butler, and he actually blocked Jimmy Butler twice in this game.
Yeah.
So, and those were big moments too. So I'm obviously like Tyrese is still trying to figure things out in terms of like how to be the guy when he's being defended as the guy and different things like that. You have other guys that can step up, but you know, Rick said it last time against Oklahoma City. Like they've focused so much on Tyrese that it kind of helped them find other ways and different ways to kind of beat him. And so when he came out of the game, the attention wasn't as strictly on him, so they were able to use more geometry to figure out ways to beat that team. So I
Yeah.
think it's all going to work out over time, but like this is new territory for him, especially playing in such competitive basketball that he's probably not used to playing in, especially at an NBA level. So good to see him kind of just be able to stay the course. Only ended up, I think, he had 3 turnovers in this game. So like, yeah, not great, but still like a pretty solid game, and he was still
Hmm.
impactful despite not having the gaudy numbers you're used to seeing in the stat line.
And one of those last points you made, I was gonna say something about that basically, is that like you can't quantify and you can't always even notice the impact he's having by the gravity of the defense that's being pulled towards him.
Yeah.
There are times you can definitely see it happening when these quick double teams and that kind of thing. But like that impacts everything that we do because if we can work through it, you can find open shooters and find open cutters and that kind of thing. Um, and so and that affects him as well when he can't find a way to work through it and work around it. And I think that he had a really good start. His first quarter that was really good. And then he just didn't ever his shot wasn't falling super well. Like I don't feel like he took very many like bad shots. I was never like, oh man, it's a dumb shot. Like it was like, oh, it just didn't go in. Like, okay. There was one like kind of a forced at the end of the shot clock. I think it was on Jimmy. and he like overshot it or undershot it really. I think it was overshot it really poorly. But like other than that, it was like you took 10 shots and none of them. I was like, that was a dumb shot. Like he takes dumb shots and makes them. So if he
Mhm.
takes one dumb shot and misses it, it's like okay, well, whatever. It was a shot clock. Like it was you had to shoot it. So it wasn't like he had a choice. And so if his shot's not falling, then his stat lines at times can look a little like lackluster, especially from what we've been spoiled with like 16 assists and 0 turnovers and 35 points. So like, oh my God, but like that's not that is not normal.
It's not
And that's not
sustainable.
no, that's not for a guy, he's young, and then once you do have this kind of games, then how do teams respond, like you were saying? So people are not going to let that happen to them without him having to earn it anymore. People were, they were they to be fair, they were not giving him the credit that he deserved, and then he
Mhm.
made them pay for it, and now they are giving him the credit he deserves, and so he has to find a way to respond. And as a
Yeah, for
team, they
sure.
do it. Not even just him. As a team, they have to figure it out with Rick and everybody. They have to figure out. So when they give Tyrese this look, how do we respond? And I think they did a good job today of like not making it cost them the game. But at times, it has cost us games where we could not figure out how to get Tyrese going, and our offense just sank because of it.
Mhm.
And as everybody mentioned, TJ being so good tonight was a big reason why we were able to get through that.
Yeah, I think there's been some moments there too at the end of games where he's tried to like when he doesn't really have it going offensively, but then he wants to kind of take over and be that guy. I feel like there's been times in those moments where it's not really been natural and it kind of feels more forced. And like you
Hmm.
talked about those shots that he missed, like they ended up not hurting the Pacers because they won this game, but like had they got a better quality look, would that have
Hmm.
resulted in kind of keeping that lead a little bit further apart so they
Yeah,
didn't have to
maybe.
go into this, scramble mode here? But I thought Pat Boylan put out a really good tweet and something to bring up because the Pacers, free throw wise, have shot 78% on average for the season. Tonight, they go 20 of 21 from the free throw
Hmm.
line. Had they, sustained their average numbers, right, they would have been 16 of 21 from the free throw line,
Yeah,
which means they lose this game by two
yeah,
points.
yeah.
So hitting free throws is a big thing. And we talked about Miles and, big game, but Aaron Nesmith hit two big free throws too after
Hmm.
Tyler Hero drilled a three to cut the 4 point lead to one. And it was one of those things where Jimmy Cook from 1075 The Fans like, all right, Alex, what's going to happen here? And I was trying to be like not optimistic, but I was like, I don't want to be like super pessimist. I'm just gonna say they're gonna go 1-2. I think they're gonna split them because so
Yeah,
much pressure. I thought the same thing for Miles and for Nice, but I said they're gonna split them. It just feels like that always happens with the Pacers on the
yeah,
free throws, but they go up there and they knock all four of them down, and that really was a difference in the ball game. So, there's a lot of different things that played out throughout the game. Obviously, those all matter, but like when the game's on the line and you're at the free throw line, free shots, you got to hit your free throws, and we've seen this Pacers team not hit them several different times for many years, not just this season.
yeah,
And I would say that you're probably not wanting Miles or Neesmith as your go-to option on the free throw line. So for those two guys to step up and hit them, thought that was massive in this game.
yeah. It was huge. I was nervous. I was nervous, especially with Miles. I was like, I've seen him hit lots of free throws before. I wouldn't shock me if he made both of these. With Neesmith, I was like, oh boy, he gets a little bit streaky sometimes. He can be a great shooter. And it didn't surprise me that he made them both, but it was like that's big, it's huge. Um, and that was something else I was like, that last few like minutes of the game where they're pressing and we're trying to inbound the ball, and it was kind of a struggle to inbound the ball, and it felt like that like we never both those situations we did not want Miles or Neesmith. That wasn't like the plan. You could tell that was not the plan to have them have the ball and get fouled.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those situations, I like if you, I'd have to go back and watch them again, but both of them I felt like that Tyrese was not trying to be as aggressive to get to the ball. So I was wondering if maybe they wanted to get Pascal the ball because one of them, Tyrese was like all the way at the other end of the court when Aaron got the ball, and the one with Miles, Tyrese was behind him in the opposing court, the other half of the court, and just didn't rush up. I don't know if he just didn't want to bring a defender to like triple Miles, but he didn't like you've seen in game scenarios, whoever they want to get the ball, often will sprint to an open spot or sprint to the guy who has
Mm-hmm.
the ball to get it from him. Tyrese did not do that. Now, the view that I got from the TV could not see fully what was happening. So there may have been a reason why, but it just
Mm-hmm.
stood out to me that like, why aren't we getting Tyrese the ball? And why isn't that happening? I don't know what's going on here. It was a little bit concerning, but it worked out.
Yeah, on the Neesmith free throws, I do know Ty was subbed out of the game for defense, and
That's
McConnell was in the
right.
game.
That's what. Yeah, they
So
subbed him out and they couldn't get him back in for offense. That's what happened on that one.
yeah,
For the
because
Miles
there's
one,
like
he was in the backcourt.
yeah, so
Yeah,
that was definitely a big factor there. But it's one of those things where the Pacers obviously had to win this game, and I know that there's a lot of other things we could talk about with this game, different players that stepped
sure.
up. Like Neesmith had a big game, Siakam was pretty solid, 18 points, 8 rebounds.
Yeah,
I mean, good play from everybody. You mentioned I think it was 6 or 7 guys in double digits,
7.
right?
Yeah,
Seven.
because
Yeah, I mean
because it was McConnell, Toppin, Halliburton, all the starters,
all the
Halliburton,
starters and then the
Nembhard,
two bench
Turner,
players.
Naismith,
So
Siakam, and Shepard had a great game. He didn't score. His I feel so bad for the guy. It's just I think he's a good shooter still, even though he's been a terrible shooter this season. I'm always like, good shot, and he misses it. But like,
and
it looks good, and it's right. It's the right decision. I
yes.
feel like, and he played great defense tonight. I feel like he deserved a bit of a shout out. I just feel bad that he like it's not falling. I don't know why.
Yeah, he's been pretty solid defensively, and that's the thing. It's like Neesmith got in foul trouble early, Siakam got in foul
Hmm.
trouble early, and so
Yeah.
you bring in Shepard, you bring in Obi Toppen, and those guys are able to step up. And then you do notice Jalen Smith had some nice plays there, but it
Hmm.
was a 9-man rotation, no Doug McDermott in this game tonight, so it was really felt like a playoff series. But a lot of things, were implied here because there's a lot of implications because of what was at stake for the Pacers if they lost this game or they won this game. And so now
Hmm.
by winning this game, they are a full game and a half above Miami. But really, it's 2 games
Yeah.
because Miami, they own the tiebreaker over them. Philadelphia, they pulled out a double overtime victory over San Antonio
Oh
tonight.
my
So
gosh.
they are
Ugh.
actually only a game behind. So now they're the 7 seed.
But
Miami
we own the
falls to 8.
tiebreaker with them, right?
We own the tiebreaker with Philadelphia.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
all 3 of us were to tie with the same record, I believe Indiana would win that tiebreaker as well. I might be incorrect on that, but I
If
do
we have the
know
same record as Philadelphia and Miami,
if we did, yes.
yeah, because we have the
But
tiebreaker with both teams individually, so we
right, but
should.
it's based on what your overall record is against each other, all 3 teams.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's where it gets interesting. I had Tony
Hmm.
East help me out because I was like, Tony, I was like, now the Pacers are kind of like
But that's an
pretty
interesting
solidly in
scenario.
6. What happens for 4 and 5 and 3
Yeah.
potentially? So basically the Pacers have 45 wins and 34 losses. Cleveland has 46 wins and 33 losses. So we're only a game back of Cleveland for the 5th seed, and they play each other on Friday night.
Hmm.
The other 2 games that Cleveland has is pretty mild, but if Indiana can tie with Cleveland, they jump up to 5. Now, here's the thing, New York, they still have, I think, 4 games left to play. They've got the Bulls,
Yes.
Celtics, Nets, and the Bulls again. So if for some reason it was a 3-way tie, Indiana would have the 4 seed. New York would be the 5 seed, Cleveland would be the 6 seed.
Oh
So
wow.
because the Pacers would have the most wins against those 2 teams based on everything plays. Now, I think the way it plays out, even if Indiana lost to Cleveland on Friday night somehow and they still tie with the same record, Indiana would still have the most wins. But if they get an additional win, it only helps that case. But
Yeah.
with Orlando, we know that they've already lost that tiebreaker to Orlando head to head.
Hmm.
I haven't looked at like if it was like a 4-way tie, if they could get it to 3, but they're only a game and a half back of the 3 seed. It's kind of like 2.5 because Orlando has a
As the
tiebreaker over
tiebreaker.
Indiana, but they
Hmm.
still got the Bucks twice, and the 76ers and the Rockets. So
Oof.
you just
That's
never
tough.
know what's going to happen. I mean, there's a real scenario where Pacers could jump up to 4-5 and play Orlando in a 4-5 series if New York is able to kind of get back ahead of Orlando. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there. I would assume
I
because
mean,
Orlando has a tiebreaker over New York, if Indiana, New York, and Orlando got in a 3-way tie, Orlando would get the 3 seed because they've got the tiebreaker over us and over New York, so they probably have the most wins against those teams. So because Indiana's only 2-1, I think, against New York. So but they would have the home
yeah.
court advantage over New York in a 4-5 matchup, which would be really interesting. So, lots still to be to be
It's
determined here
gonna be a long week.
moving forward. But this was just one of the Pacers. Like you kept looking at, like can't fall into play in. Now there's a chance if everything kind of goes their way, they could fall into potentially a top 3 spot in the Eastern Conference still. So it's not
Hmm.
impossible, but you got to take care of business, and I think that's where we both probably lie. Like going to Toronto on Tuesday night. Toronto has been a matchup problem for Indiana. They cannot let this game slip.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big game. You just gotta hope that like Siakam takes it personally and is like, no, I have to beat my old team, and he kind of hesitates, he takes over because like it's been frustrating. We went to the first game together when they played Toronto. It's like we got to beat Toronto. If we lose, it won't be the end of the world. Because the other thing we have to consider is that Milwaukee lost again tonight. They've lost 4 in a row. They still have 4 games left, so they could lose 8 in a row.
They
I
could
mean,
be back, so they could fall down too in the standings, and the Pacers have the tiebreaker over them too. Like that's something else to keep an eye on because they're only a game ahead of Orlando. But
yeah,
that's
they don't have like a crazy tough schedule. They have the Magic twice, the Bucks and the Thunder, which the Bucks and the Magic twice, the Celtics and the Thunder. Which who knows if Boston's playing for anything anymore other than just momentum. But like they've lost 4 in a row. Washington, Memphis, Toronto, and the Hawks. Like
no, the Knicks.
the Bucks lost to the Hawks.
No, I'm saying they lost to the Knicks tonight.
Yes, but it
Knicks,
was
Raptors, Grizzlies, Wizards, and they lose the game before
so
that
it
too.
was so it's 5 in a row. It's 5 in a
No, they
row
beat
then.
the Hawks 122 to 113.
Oh, okay, then I'm wrong. It's
It
four,
was
but
the
yeah,
Knicks
yeah,
that
yeah,
they
yeah.
beat
They
tonight.
beat the Hawks. I thought they were gonna lose to the Hawks that game
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
were
yeah.
down at one point. So they lost 4. Yeah, it's the Wizards. The so it's either way you split it.
Right, right.
Three bad teams, and then the Knicks who are solid but are undermanned, and you would expect the Bucks to be the better team in this situation. Um, Especially with the fact they haven't locked up the 2 seed yet. So who knows?
Yeah. Indiana just 2.5 games back of Milwaukee, but they clearly have the tiebreaker over them, beating them 3 games
Mhm.
to 1 this year. So
And if Boston's still playing, they could lose to Boston on Tuesday. Orlando's fighting for position, so who knows? There's 2 games there that could be up for grabs. Toronto's still fighting, or not Toronto. OKC is still fighting for playoff positioning. They're playing that game full on. Who
yeah.
knows if Shea gets back yet or not? But if he's back, like who knows? So
The wildest scenario to me that could play out right now is Orlando jumps to 2, Indiana jumps to 3,
that would be
Milwaukee and New York
nuts.
are 4 or 5.
Especially based off of preseason like expectations of like where would Orlando and Indiana be? It would not be 2-3. It would be like maybe
Yeah,
playing, maybe 7-8 seeds. Like that's where
right.
most people had us and Orlando was like, and to be fair, you and I probably would have said the same thing. We weren't like I didn't think we'd be a 2 or a 3 or a 4 seed
No, I
this
think I
season.
said
I didn't.
7.
Yeah, I thought 7 or 8 would probably be, maybe 6 would be like the best case scenario, which is where we are. But like I don't think most reasonable Pacers fans did not expect us to be where we are right now. So pretty
It is
awesome.
definitely wild. It is definitely wild. There's a lot to be left to play. And I think, I saw Kevin O'Connor and Bill Simmons just ripping the Cavs apart, saying they're going to be a first round playoff exit once again. We'll see what happens. The Cavs have been kind of up and down all season long.
Hmm. Yeah,
Had a great stretch there where they beat a lot of bad teams, and other than that, they haven't done much. And Orlando's been pretty wishy washy the last little bit. I know they've been winning more games, but their schedule's been super soft. They haven't played a lot of the better teams in the NBA. When they have, it feels like they've kind of gone like 50-50 against them based on what I remember seeing. So I
yeah,
just think this is where the Pacers will have to take care of business, win all 3 games you have left, and just let the cards fall where they may. And whatever happens seating wise, you just deal with it. Too hard to predict at this point where you can land because there's so much changing going on. Like you might want to
yeah,
position yourself for a 6 seed, but like at this point, like just get into the playoffs. That's all that matters. So
sure.
great game from the Pacers. Get the win they needed. Facci's going to be back tomorrow with Keith Smith doing a solo show. So I will not be on tomorrow's show. So you have Facci and Keith Smith from Spotrack or Spotrack.com to kind of get an overall discussion of the Eastern Conference. And I know Keith covers the Eastern Conference very closely. So that'll be a good detailed breakdown. But before we sign off, David, me and you decided we're going to do a draft tonight. So
Oh yeah.
go ahead and tell everybody the fun part of this podcast that we're going to do to close it out.
I mean, it was a pretty fun win, but yes, we are going to do a Pixar movie draft. So there's some people have, Pixar is different than Disney, not the same, even though Disney does own Pixar now. So we're talking about movies like Toy Story, Finding Nemo, all those movies. So there's a list of they have been around for a long time. For most of your listeners, probably since their childhood, they've been watching Pixar movies. So we are going to pick our starting five and our sixth man of Pixar movies. And we are going to, of course, follow the Toy Story rule, which is that you can only pick one movie from a franchise within Pixar. And by the word franchise, I mean a film series. So if I pick Toy Story 2, I cannot go pick Toy Story 1 or 3 or 4. I can only get that one movie from that franchise. And the reason why it's called the Toy Story rule is because, of course, the Toy Story series is really the only the only Pixar film series that has sequels that are worth fighting over. Um, There are Incredibles 2 is fine. Finding Dory is fine. Not like bad movies, but not the ones that you're gonna be fighting over. Whereas whereas Toy Story, there's several really great movies in there that we could be fighting over. So it makes it more interesting if we can only have one of those each instead of having multiple.
Yeah, no, that's a great point because who wants to see one team have Toy Story 1, 2, 3, and 4 on it? Like, okay, I mean, you have the whole series, but come on now.
Yeah.
So
What
we're
else
only
do you
able to
have?
pick one from each movie sequel. So that makes it a little bit more challenging, and you have to be very particular. So I always ask my guests, do they want the first pick or they want the second and third? The ball is in your court. We're not flipping a coin. We're not doing the random wheel of circles that you like to, or the circle name,
The
whatever that
Wheel of
thing is.
Names.
Wheel of
Yeah,
names.
it's an old teacher thing. Um, I want 2 and 3 in
You
this
want two and
draft.
three.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna make this interesting for you
Okay.
because I might not take the pick that you would think I would for
Yeah.
my number one. But
I was worried either. Yeah. Go ahead.
so I'm picking The Incredibles.
Okay. That's a really good movie. It's definitely high on my big board. But it's not the consensus pick. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't think it was, but I'm trying to play my cards right here. So
I understand. I'm with you.
I'm going with Incredibles number one. So you've got the next
Yeah.
two picks.
So the next 2 picks. Because in my head, I'm not gonna say that because you have the next 2 picks after that. So oof, yeah, it's tough. Because in my head, I was kind of we can get into what I was thinking later. I'm gonna speed things along. I'm gonna take 2 movies, obviously, 2 and 3.
Yes.
Um, man, it's hard to say like what are you not gonna take or
Yeah.
what are you going to take? Um, because we have so many options with Toy Story, I'm happy with multiple of them, and
Hmm.
so I'm not gonna take a Toy Story movie just yet. I might take one after you go, but I'm not gonna do that just yet. I'm going to take Inside Out is my first pick. I think it's a top tier um Pixar movie, and I think it also in terms of like the way it views emotions is mature and it's helpful for kids.
Hmm.
Um the other one I'm going to take, oof, man, it's gonna be impossible either way I split it. I'm gonna take Finding Nemo.
Finding
Finding
Nemo.
Nemo as a father is a movie that resonates and is even before I was a father. One of my
Yeah.
favorite movies as a kid, as a preteen. Um, and it's one that my sister and I have always loved. And it is also, I think, one of the best movies. And I'm just trying to see like, are you gonna take the other ones that I like or not? But I think those are 2 that I do love. And I also think you maybe would have taken. Maybe I'm wrong, but those are my 2 picks, Inside Out and Finding Nemo.
Okay, so I will not lie. I have not seen Inside Out yet, so I would not have picked
Okay.
that.
I thought maybe you hadn't seen that one, so I was like, maybe I shouldn't take it. But if you had seen it, I think you would have picked it. So I was like,
Yeah.
I wasn't
And
sure.
Finding Nemo was on my list, but I probably wouldn't have picked it this early for me, specifically with the
So
movies
you're
that I
saying
have left.
I did a bad job. Okay.
Well, based on my big board, yes, but that doesn't mean what other people are going to hear this and think of, when they vote.
This is true. This is true.
So for my next pick, I'm going with the classic. I'm going Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
So
That was the one that I was on the fence, either that one or Finding Nemo, which one you would
yeah,
take.
and so I love Monsters Inc. I think it's a great movie. And then that I really like this movie. I would probably have this higher than Monsters Inc. if I was going to do a rewatch, but that's Coco.
Yeah.
So I am picking Coco for number three, and I'm putting the Toy Story
Ball
decision
back in
back
my
in your
court.
hand.
You
Yes.
just like you just took my big board and just like shredded it. Like
This
if
is what happens when
you
you overthink.
Yeah, I know. If you made me pick my top 5 Pixar movies and without Toy Story movies included, just don't count any of those. Your 3 picks and my 2 picks would be the 5.
Okay.
So you probably couldn't draft it any better, honestly.
Wow.
Um, so congratulations on
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. And
Um,
you're a movie guru, and I am not. So that makes me feel good.
I'm a
David does podcasts
guru,
about every different movie series you can think of. Not every, but like a lot of them.
a lot of them. It
And
doesn't mean that I'm an expert. It means I enjoy them a lot.
I'm not on those podcasts for a reason.
Were you on one of the Disney ones?
I don't think so. I was on the
Oh,
sports
okay.
movie one. That was it.
That's the must be the one. That was the one you were on. Yeah. Okay, so I'll make the Toy Story decision. I'm going with in my opinion, if I had to pick one of them as the best one, it is Toy Story, the first one.
Okay.
I think that they're all four, and they're in different for different reasons. All 4 of them are good. In my opinion, Toy Story 1 is beyond just the fact that it is the original. I think that like so because of that you don't have the other. It's like saying the first Star Wars movie is the best because like how do you have sequels that build so much off the first one? And it's the same with Toy Story to me. Like the first one, without the first one, you can't get the emotions of the other ones that you like so much. Like
Mm,
the friendship between Buzz and Woody in Toy Story 2 and 3, it means nothing if not for one.
mm.
But even beyond that, I just think even if you don't care about that, the background of all of that, it's still the better movie of the four. So that out of the way, it comes down to like my other two picks, and like honestly, I just want to take what you've already taken.
Well, we do
So
have our 6 man, so you still have 3 picks left.
I know that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, I
It's
get you on that.
tough because I don't really want to take. I want to take ones that are going to be taken. So I'm gonna go with what I think is the best movie available. That's not a Toy Story movie, which is Wall-E.
Wally, okay. I like Wally, but I don't think I would have picked it for me
Yeah. At
because
this
I've
point,
only seen it
we're
like
far enough
once.
down the list of good Pixar movies that like there's a couple more that are like some people I have a couple of hot takes on a couple ones that people like a lot that I don't enjoy as much.
Yeah.
But Wall-E I do think is very, very good. And as a fan of sci-fi, it works as a sci-fi movie, but also just like is a good kids movie too.
Mm. Okay, so this means I don't have to pick my Toy Story movie till the very end, so that does
That's
kind of help
correct.
me out a little bit, and that is
It
why I
does.
was trying to avoid doing that.
Me too.
Yes, it was we were both thinking on the same process here. Okay. So I am torn. I think I feel pretty good about these two. For my next pick, I'm gonna take A Bug's Life.
Okay. Sure, you can have it. I don't care. I wasn't gonna pick that one. Ugh.
I that is what I think is that the first Pixar movie?
It's the second, I think.
Toy Story is
Toy
first,
Story
right?
is the first one, yeah.
And then A Bug's Life. And I remember watching that, and that was such a good movie. So
Yeah.
I'm picking that one. And this one, I don't know if you like this one or not, but I'm picking Ratatouille for my next one.
Yeah, that's one that my hot take is it's fine. I'm sure it's a
Mm,
good movie. Like you're talking about like just film. I just didn't really care much. It was fine. Yeah, it was solid, but not in my top like 15 probably Pixar movies,
okay.
which maybe is a hot take, but like definitely not top 10. And to me, Bug's Life also is not in my top 10, but like top 10 Pixar movies is like there's there are
It's sub 10.
15 really good ones,
Yeah.
and probably almost 10, if not 10 great ones. So it's
Mm,
like not saying it's a bad movie. The same with
yeah.
Ratatouille, like it's fine. It's just for me, it was like, yeah, this is fine, but I don't really like take anything. It didn't resonate with me in any way. Whereas
Mm,
there's a few other movies on my big board still that, um, although I don't think they're as good of movies as Ratatouille, like in terms of like film critique, they resonated with me in different ways. Um,
yeah.
so I get two picks or
Yeah, you get your five
my
and your
last
six
two.
now. Yeah.
Oh boy. So, I I'm gonna go and get this is like actually probably my number six, but I'm gonna go and get out of the way. I'm gonna take Incredibles 2. You already
Okay.
have Incredibles 1, and I think Incredibles 2 is still solid. It
Mm,
is just like the first one is really, really exceptional. So it's hard to come close to that. I still think 2 is a good time. And it's a good movie still. Like a lot of things I like about the first movie are present, and the second movie it's just not quite as good. Um, but my other choices, I'm looking in between. I might as well be open between Luca and Onward, both of which have had mixed reception. Um, in terms of like they weren't like universally beloved, like a lot of the ones we've already drafted. But I resonated with for different reasons. Onward, is like a sibling tale about a uh two brothers and their father has passed
it's a good
away.
movie.
And I really enjoyed it. I don't have a brother, I have a sister, and like just certain aspects of it that resonated with me. Luca, I think is maybe a better movie. Like, visually, I prefer the style of Luca. It's a good friendship tale. It's a good story about like not judging people because they're different than you and that kind of thing, which is all really good stuff that needs to be out there in media. Um, I think just because of the fact that I really resonate with the family aspects of Onward and the fantasy aspects of it. It's like a fantasy film. I'm gonna go with Onward, and also it's my brother-in-law. He really that one really hit home with him, based off of his family dynamic as well. So
Yeah.
In honor of him a little bit, I'll pick it from my last pick there onward.
Yeah, I remember actually when you talked about some Pixar movies on your podcast, I went and watched Onward after you talked about it because of the emotional connection. And I don't even know if I got teary-eyed when I watched it, but I think I might have.
Yeah,
So it's a really good movie.
Pixar is good
It's
at that.
yeah, I think I actually forgot about what that movie was about when I'm looking here at the list of stuff you sent me in terms of like Rotten Tomato scores and things like that.
Yeah,
So that definitely was one that kind of slipped through the cracks for me. And obviously, I'm going to pick a Toy Story movie here first.
sure,
So I'll just go ahead and get my pick out of the way. Then we can talk about some of the other ones that we didn't
sure.
draft. But Toy Story 2 obviously is the next one that you have to pick. I think out of the Toy Story movies for me, I like Toy Story 2 a lot. Uh,
I think that opinion is probably the majority. I don't agree.
what do you think is better, three or
Three,
four?
three, not four.
Really?
Four's fine, but three I think is better. Yeah, that's
Okay.
why our buddies Carson and Lincoln vehemently disagree. They think Toy Story 2 is better than one even.
I
Um,
don't know if I agree with that, but I
yeah,
think they're pretty close.
I just think like I've always loved it to some extent, but also certain things about it do kind of drive me crazy.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a hot take, and I do honestly believe it's not just like a hot take just to have a hot take, but I do think that like the consensus opinion is more that Toy Story 2 is like most people would say one is the best, then two, then three, then four, or two and then one, then three, then four. But I think it's one, then three, then two, then four,
One, then
which is
three,
like
then two,
weird.
then four. Okay.
Yes, that's my ranking of the four.
And
But
I know Devin brought this
but
up when
two
he
is
talked to you.
excellent. So
Yeah, when Devin and you talked about this movie, I do agree with him though that when She Loved Me, that song,
oh.
the Jesse song, that is an emotional tearjerker.
He's trying, yeah, it's trying really hard to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
love that
is.
song. It's probably one of my favorite songs from the Toy Story series. Obviously, You've Got a Friend of Me is like
Yeah.
the go-to, but like that's right up there with me in terms of like songs that I love. So I don't know. I just feel like one and two are the best. I didn't love all of like parts of three. I didn't
Mhm.
like the villain in that movie,
Oh, I love the villain.
which
That's the difference then.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of annoying. He annoys me, but I think it's part of his job.
Stinky Pete annoyed me.
Yeah,
It's like
he
his
was
whole
annoying
thing
too.
is like fart jokes, basically. It's like, okay, well,
Yes, it's which one do you like the least out of those
believe me
two?
not, I'm above that most of the time.
But anyway, I didn't know that you didn't like. I guess I forgot that you didn't like Toy Story 2 as
You
much.
maybe didn't know, but
I might not have, but I will say for movies that I have seen on here that we didn't pick, obviously Up is a big one that people probably think about, and that's really
yeah,
emotional and kind of sad. So
it's kind of a downer. It's probably a really great movie. I've only watched it once. I can't come back to it. The opening is like so emotional, and like I probably would cry watching it every time. But like the rest of it, I feel like it's like the reverse movie experience from what you're used to, or what like you anticipate is that like you start off fine and build up this relationship with the characters, and then there's emotional payoff at the end, and it's like the opposite where it's like all of a sudden you're crying and you're like what the heck is going on, and then the rest of the movie feels like a downer, feels like not a downer like in terms of like the mood, but in terms of like it's like a roller coaster in reverse. Instead of like
mhm,
building up to the drop at the end, it's like you're having this drop out of nowhere, and then you're like slowly going back down. So it feels weird to me, and
yeah,
that might not make any sense to some people, but like that's just like the way my brain processes my opinion of that, is that like it feels like they're trying to do something unique, which is cool. It's just like for whatever reason, I was never really drawn to that one after I watched it the first time.
yeah, and I think I've only seen it once too, probably maybe twice, but it's been a hot minute since I've seen it. Every time I try to ask my wife if she wants to watch it, she's like, "I refuse to watch that movie again."
Yeah,
She said it was too emotional for her. So
it is pretty
that's where I'm
emotional.
at with that one. One that I did watch, and I feel like I liked it actually, but it's a little bit interesting. Is Soul? I don't know if you like that or not.
I like it. I probably wouldn't have picked it for this. It's probably just outside that range. It is just like almost a little too. It's like imagine, so like you haven't seen Inside Out, but the fans that have seen Inside Out, Soul is just like taking that concept and making it a little bit more abstract to the point where it's like, I'm not sure I always am following what they're saying. And emotionally it works. I can remember seeing it and feeling like the emotion like and Pixar is like one of the best in the business at creating, cultivating that emotion and then using it effectively. The end with the main character, the protagonist, like the emotions work. I'm pretty sure I teared up.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a good movie. It just was like there's so many good movies that it's for different reasons. It's just like on the fringes of where I would have drafted it. So I probably wouldn't have picked it, but it's a good honorable mention.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I felt like it was not top 12 probably for our picks. So I
Yeah,
wasn't mad about that. And then just kind of going down the list here, I'm not going to name every movie here, but one that I have never seen is Turning Red. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
it's newer. I did not watch it. It's one of those. I mentioned earlier to you that there's four I haven't seen, actually five I haven't seen, and that's one of them. But I've seen most of them. Turning Red I haven't seen. Good Dinosaur I haven't seen. Lightyear I haven't seen, and then Cars 2 and 3 I haven't seen. So just those
Okay.
five. But yeah, Cars 1 was like I was kind of like about it, which I know there's people that love Cars. I'm sorry, but it wasn't for me. So I just didn't watch 2 and 3, and I heard 2 was really bad. It's the only Rotten Tomatoes. Let me be totally clear. Rotten Tomatoes is not the end all be all of movie opinions, and it's not even a movie opinion. It's an aggregator. They like take people's opinions and put it into a percentage. So the percentage is just like, did you like it or did you not like it? And it's a positive if you did, if it's a negative if you didn't. So that percentage, if it's 100%, means that there were no negative reviews. It doesn't mean like it's a plus perfect movie. So it's not. So some people don't always understand that. So I'm not saying that Rotten Tomatoes is like the barometer for good movie versus bad movie. However, it is Cars 2 is the only rotten movie that Pixar's made. Period.
Yeah.
So
39%.
it says a lot about Pixar, number one, but number two says that maybe it's not a great movie, and I'm not really worried about watching it.
Yeah, I have seen Lightyear, which is actually funny that I've seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Um, I think
I've heard mixed reviews about it, and I love the franchise, the original franchise. And some things I've seen, I'm like, I don't know, like they're kind of to me, it seems like they're a little bit uncareful with the backstories in like the world of Toy Story.
yeah.
And I don't, I, which just sounds funny as a 34-year-old man to be like, I care about the world. But if it's not a great movie, then why do I care to like watch it and have it tarnish my feelings on Buzz Lightyear? I don't know. That sounds so silly as a grown man, but here we are.
Yeah, it to me, I remember watching it and I thought it was fine. I think
Yeah,
I might even dozed off in the middle of it, so
yeah.
that's not a great sign. I haven't seen Good Dinosaur, haven't seen Elemental.
I liked
Um,
Elemental. It
liked it.
is a little bit lower on the Rotten Tomatoes, but I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Part of it was I watched it with Ezra and he enjoyed it, which he's two. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was great because he doesn't watch very many movies. But I thought it worked for what I was going for, and it was a good story. My only thing is like you could knock it for the fact that like it's not a super original. It's like the themes are very much like there's the fire people versus the water people, and we need to learn how to get along and not like hate each other for being different, which like Pixar does a lot. It's a very
Right, right.
important message and a very important theme, but like you might say at this point in the Pixar world, it's a little bit overdone, but I didn't like in the moment watching it, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, here we go again with a story of people that are different having to get along. I was like, no, this is fine. But
Yeah.
so I enjoyed it, but
All right, David. Well, we've probably gone about the same amount of time
15,
on this
25 minutes.
draft as we did our Pacers recap. So, just to tie it all together, the Pacers, they want to stay up in that Toy Story range where they're not getting
That's
any
right.
Rotten Tomatoes for the rest of the season. We can't have any more Rotten Tomatoes. We can't have any more Cars 2 performances with let ups against Toronto or Atlanta. So, this was a lot of fun. As we close things out, go ahead once again, read your six. I'll read my six and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I'll go in order. Here we got Inside Out, Finding Nemo, Toy Story, Wally, Onward, and Incredibles 2.
All right. I have Incredibles 2, Monsters Inc.,
No, no, no.
Coco.
Incredibles.
Well, what did I say? Incredibles 2?
Yeah.
Oh, stupid me. I guess I just heard it and said it again.
Yeah, you did.
Uh, Let me restart that, guys. That's terrible. So I have The Incredibles, I have Monsters Inc., I have Coco, A Bug's Life, Ratatouille, and Toy Story 2. So let us know what you guys think in the comment section on YouTube, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're listening to this, wherever you found this at. Just leave us a 5-star rating and review as well on your podcast apps. But let us know what you guys think in the comment section about this draft and who you think should win. But with that being said, like I said, Fachi will be back tomorrow with some more deep dives on these Eastern Conference matchups here with Keith Smith. I think you guys are going to really enjoy that. Enjoy the eclipse. Don't be out there in too much traffic. But
Be
if you're
safe.
stuck in traffic, listen to this twice. You got plenty of time to kill. Or leave us a 5-star rating and review if you're stuck in traffic. So anyway, everybody, thank you so much. You can find me at Alex Golden NBA. David's at Shady Buffalo Pod on Twitter. And you
Yep.
can find our Twitter account at Pacers Pod STP. And we'll be back tomorrow with Keith Smith and Fachi.